Hey everybody, before I get started, I just want to mention a couple of ways that you can engage with me on a more personal level. I have a few avenues set up and I keep focusing on one, and I figured why don't I make a short little video talking about all of them real quick before we get into these episodes. So first thing, Patreon. There's a link in the episode description and every episode description to the Patreon, as well as a video on the feed called Major Announcement that has all the details of what each tier offers and how much they cost. I implore you to check that out. I offer a lot of cool shit for my patrons. Second thing, the Discord channel. There's also a Discord link in the episode description and in every episode description. I have multiple channels set up there for each show that I'm covering, and it's a great way to just engage with me. I have a channel set up for MMA talk as well. I'm a big MMA fan, so if you're an MMA fan, you can check that out as well. There's a link to the Discord in the episode description. And then lastly, the Facebook and Twitter. Social media. Follow me on there. I post news on there. When I say news, I mean like, hey, I'm stopping covering this show. Hey, I'm starting covering this show. Let me know what you think about this. I do live watches of things on Facebook where like I'll check in and say I'm watching so-and-so show, and then I'll like live comment while I'm watching it, and that'll be cool if maybe you watch that show too and you want to watch along with me, or you're watching it later and you will see my thoughts, which are usually pretty entertaining because I'm usually pretty high when I'm writing them. So check out all those links in each episode description, and let's talk about this episode. Peace.
One mic, one mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic. One mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic. One mic. One mic.
Hey everybody, welcome back to One Mic, and today I'm here to talk about Season 3, Episode 10 of Apple TV's Ted Lasso, entitled International Break. This episode is named after an apparent break in the schedule in which the players play for their countries of origin against one another. At this time, Richmond is on a 10-game win streak, largely due apparently to great play from Sam. But it turns out international break ain't going to be so great for Sam because for some strange reason, despite his stellar play, he was not selected for the Nigerian team. So that's the basis for this episode title. As far as the episode goes, abrupt and rushed character changes and pivots seem to be running rampant as several characters just decided to be entirely different people this week. Danny's was meant to be a gag, which, like a lot of other gags this season, wasn't funny, but I'll give that a pass. It was meant to be a gag. But then several other characters seem to have completed redemption arcs that we didn't even know they were on. And it's almost as if these characters knew there was only 2 episodes left. But the show continues, though, to get everything right when it comes to Roy and Jamie and their dynamic. But as we near the end of this show's, I think, historic run, that seems to be about all they're getting right, unfortunately. But I want to start off with talking about Nate. Right off the bat, we randomly hear that Nate has been fired from West Ham, and we later learned that he actually quit. And, you know, I could sit here and point out all the ways in which everything that has been done with Nate this season has been wrong, and cite this as just another example of that, but I don't even think this thing needs explaining, nor do you need to hear me rant yet again about how half-assed the show is doing this Nate redemption arc. Having Nate's tenure with West Ham end off-screen, in between episodes, completely the fuck out of nowhere, is pure Ted Lasso Season 3. Like, that's really all that needs to be said on that. They did it off-screen, in between episodes, completely the fuck out of nowhere. I can't give a better example of how this season has failed than that. So after Jade leaves for Poland, Nate sees an opportunity to sneak out of the house while the paparazzi are gone, and he goes to his parents' house. And he has a nice scene later where he's playing the violin, and the violin serves as the soundtrack to a scene with Rebecca and a bunch of the other team's owners that's so sweet it'll give you cavities. But his dad comes into the room later and essentially apologizes to him for not knowing how to raise a genius. And this is the first example of a abrupt character change, and I'm struggling with this abrupt change from his father. This guy's treated Nate like shit for the entire show, and just because we're nearing the end of it, they just decide to have him turn over a new leaf, have a change of heart, and have him reconcile. And it's like he's like, oh, there's 2 episodes left. Let me just change to a different person now. And like, they didn't put any work into this. Like, they just had this guy treat Nate like shit, they they had like they I feel like the writers think that if they have a character who's been shitty do one thing that's not shitty, not even nice, just not shitty, then that serves as evidence that they are being redeemed or have been redeemed. And I don't see it. Like I'm not even gonna start the rant again. You guys know my rant about my dissatisfaction with the Nate redemption arc. It's not working. There's barely anything happening there at all anyway. And the dad thing just seemed to be another example of this. They didn't put any real work into it. They didn't show us seeing them bond or forge a new relationship. Dad just all of a sudden has a change of heart because there's 2 episodes left. Let me calm down. And then, the last we see of Nate in this episode, he snuck into the locker room and he set up everyone's locker for Will, and he's left with an apology note, which I really wish they put more effort into redeeming Nate, because that could have been a beautiful moment for me, and it just really just felt empty. It's like, oh, okay. Nice. That was nice of Nate. Not like, oh man, like what a great moment. Like that really made me feel good that Nate did that. And they could have done that fairly easily by spending their time working on a Nate redemption arc instead of fucking around with Keeley, instead of fucking around with, what is the other stupid fucking thing they did? I don't know, there's some other stupid fucking thing they wasted. Oh, the Rebecca, this fucking Rebecca, the psychic thing with all the sides, whatever happened to that? Zava, like all of these things they wasted time with, drawn this season out, put these long fucking episodes that got very little meat on the bones. They could have spent that time on a Nate redemption arc, which would have made this Will scene really nice, but they didn't spend any time on that Nate redemption arc. They fucked around doing other stupid, irrelevant shit for the rest of the season that wasn't funny, wasn't effective, didn't make sense, wasn't needed. And now they try to get this payoff. Now, I don't want to say a payoff, but they try to get this nice moment with Will and this letter and Nate. And all I just said that, I was like, oh, okay, that was nice. That's not that kind of an apathetic reaction. I'm certain is not what they were going for and not how you want to end this show's run, but that's the kind of effort they put into making it. So that's what they got out of me, was just like, oh, okay, that was nice. Anyway, moving on, and I want to. This next section is going to encompass Sam, Rebecca, and Rupert, because there's a few things that I want to talk about with each one, and I feel like they kind of interconnected a little bit. So, Sam Richardson returns this week. That's not the Sam I was talking about. I was talking about Sam Obasanya. But Sam Richardson returns this week as Edwin Akufo, and he's in town because he wants to start a super league, and he wants only the best of the best to play each other. Just only Clash of the Titans type matches. Unfortunately, this will price out, lower and middle class people from being able to afford to see the matches or to go to the games. But on the plus side, it will make all of the owners just a little bit richer. And listen, this show's done a lot of right stuff over these 3 seasons. But portraying old rich white men as willing to ruin the lives of millions just to make themselves a little bit more wealthy, spot on, baby. Love it. Just that is, you done a lot of stuff right, that might be the rightest. Rich white men's willingness to completely destroy millions to make 25 extra cents. Oh, that's accurate, motherfucker. Anyway, Rupert wants Rebecca to come hear Edwin out and possibly join this super league, and this leads me to yet another issue with this episode and the season as a whole. But talking about these abrupt character changes, what the fuck were they doing with Rupert this week? Like, Rupert, again, same as the dad, been a piece of shit this entire show. But I felt like, and let me know if you guys got this vibe too, they were trying to make him kind of sort of decent this week out of fucking nowhere. Did you guys feel that? Like, I'm watching this, like, am I supposed to be thinking that Rupert's, like, ain't so bad right now? Like, don't try to make Rupert look decent with 2 episodes left just because there's 2 episodes left. That wouldn't even be a redemption arc. It would just be a redemption, like, exclamation point or some shit. Like, redeemed. Don't worry about how he got here. He's just redeemed. Like, for example, he now has a regular looking assistant out of nowhere. And not again. I ain't trying to shade the appearance of this woman. I don't give a fuck what she looks like. But the show has told us that Rupert's assistants are potentially, he's essentially grooming them to be his next wife. He brings in these young women, or he approaches young women. He always has young women around him that are prepared to step up and become starters when his current wife gets too old. That's what they've been telling us this entire time. Now he pops up with this regular looking assistant out of nowhere. And I'm just supposed to be like, okay, so I'm supposed to think he's okay now? Like, where is this coming from? Like, who is this? Rebecca is like, who is this woman? Like, what's going on? And then at the meeting, it seemed like he was trying to make like an honest connection with Rebecca. Like, Rebecca's telling this story too that's meant to make him look like a good guy. The one about the security guard or whatever, and once he bought the team, he gave the guy a raise. Like, I'm like, what are they, like, where's this coming from? Like, why are they trying to make Rupert look like a good guy right now? And I will say this, though. In Rupert's defense, letting him get the food out of her hair, you were sending mixed signals, Rebecca. But anyway, prior to this meeting of owners to discuss this league, Edwin visits Sam's restaurant, and we learn very unfunnily that he filled up the restaurant with fake reservations, doing fake voices, and paid Nigeria $20 million to keep Sam off the team. Rebecca agrees to go to the Super League meeting, and of course, she has to make herself big in the mirror beforehand. She does the aforementioned speech to the soundtrack of Nate's violin, and essentially she's just like talking up soccer, football, and how much people love it, and how shitty it'd be to take it away from other people themselves in order to make themselves richer. Pretty standard fare. Like, they got the violin, and it's played up to be really sweet, but it's kind of just like, hey, don't be a rich piece of shit. People like soccer, so don't do that. It's pretty standard fare. But it must have worked because Edwin had a tantrum. Off screen, of course, because that's how this show rolls now. But and I guess that's the end of, like, the one episode Super League arc. Again, like, what the fuck are we doing here? Like, this was the third to last episode of the show, and they had an arc that existed only within this overly long episode. Like, what are we doing at this point? Anyway, I don't know what's... Side note here, and this is going to come up a lot over the course of the rest of 2023. I don't know what's been a bigger disappointment between this and Yellow Jackets. Like, every single week, it's like they each get progressively worse each week as in an attempt to beat the other one, it being the bigger disappointment. like I feel like next week, Yellow Jackets is they both got 2 left, right? Yellow Jackets and Ted Lasso? Yeah, I believe they both got 2 left. Like, I just feel like next week each show's gonna be shittier. Like, we're the biggest disappointment. No, we're the biggest disappointment. Anyway, moving on to Jamie and Roy, the one thing this show has done right this year, and it's the one thing we can rely on them to consistently do well is Roy and Jamie. And this episode was no exception. We see Roy having a Uncle's Day celebration with Phoebe and her mom. And for starters, we get the big reveal of not just meeting Roy's sister for the first time, but we also get confirmation of a very popular fan theory as well. In the best episode of the entire series, as I've said many times, Season 2, Episode 8, Man City, Sharon, Doc, is taken by Ted. Side note, has Ted even been in this fucking season? Like, was Ted in this episode? Like, I feel like there's been at least, like, a good 3 episodes where Ted has either not been... I don't know if he's not been in an episode at all, but he's been in an episode little enough for me to wonder, was Ted in this episode? But anyway, in Man City, Sharon is taken by Ted to the ER to be treated for a concussion. You remember she got hit by a car when she was on her bike, shit like that. And the theory was that the doctor who treated her in the ER was Roy's sister. Well, turns out it was. Same woman. We see her here. So we do get a little measure of fan service here before the series comes to a close. But Jamie arrives at the Uncle's Day party, and there's this nice back and forth about Jamie being Roy's best friend before Jamie presents Roy with a gift that I think has reached like a perfect balance between heartfelt and manly, which is his old World Cup jersey, but with the E and Kent changed to a U. And I just hope that the writer who came up with the gift idea, I hope you got a raise, because that was perfect. It fits the characters and the evolution of their relationship perfectly. What a great gift. The heartfelt nature of his old World Cup jersey but the slightly too much of a ribbing with changing the E to a U, I love it. And then, as if the scene isn't already perfect enough as it is, as his sister leaves, Jamie's like, your sister is fit. Pure Jamie. So Roy then later visits the teacher who I actually wanted him to date, and after flirting with him for a smidge, and I liked how she berated herself for that afterward. Like, she made fun of whatever it was she said. I thought that was funny. She triggers him to go apologize to Keeley. And Keeley's response comes off kind of like, no thanks, I'm good. But when Rebecca visits later, we learn that she was in fact not good. And that she wanted Roy Kent here, there, and every fucking where. But Jamie runs out to play his international break game wearing Sam's jersey number. And that, my friends, is how you do a redemption arc. And I'm not saying it's done or anything like that. We still got 2 episodes left. I'm just taking this moment to point out that they, with 2 episodes left, they've already fully succeeded on a Jamie redemption arc. Perfect. Great stuff with Jamie. Absolute, unequivocal, undeniable success with the Jamie arc on this show. Moving on, talking about Danny versus Van Dam. I like that it's easy for me to call him Van Dam because I never got used to Zero anyway. So Danny versus Van Dam was a strange collection of scenes this week. The idea that Danny gets ultra competitive when it comes time to represent his nation is kind of just really, it's juvenile humor. It's nothing particularly special. I'd expect that caliber of gag on a bad network TV show, not an Emmy Award winning Apple TV Plus sitcom. But you know, it was chuckle worthy at best when he does the like, oh, you'll be my bitch. Like, and shake your head in disappointment bad when Danny just crumbles up the chips on the plane and dumps them on the floor. Like, one, that wasn't funny in the first place, but then all I'm sitting here is like, so now you're an entitled athlete who makes a mess for someone else to clean up? And I of course, like, that's doing too much, but like, it wasn't a funny gag because it was too difficult for me to look past the assholeless nature of dumping crumbs on the floor for someone else to clean up. Like, I couldn't get past that. But even if I could, that's still not funny. But like, even if it was funny, I would have struggled to get past that. I don't know. That didn't work for me. Anyway, I want to close out talking about Keeley, and then I'm gonna give off. I'm gonna close out with my final thoughts. So about Keeley, the board has pulled funding for Keeley's firm, presumably because she didn't apologize for that sex tape, and Rebecca essentially offers to fund her herself. That's it. There's your quick and sloppy summary of the Keeley plotline this week, given all of the care and grace by me that the show has given Keeley and her shitty fucking arc this year. So, closing thoughts. I only have one. I think even at this point, even the humor is falling off on this show now too. You know, we had the glorified fart joke from Ted last week. Then he's confusing the Super League with the Justice League. Like, that felt like it was written by a fucking 9-year-old. Then you got the fucking thing with Danny and Van Dam. When the humor's not there, that's how you know this show's really done. So, like, because that's the easiest part, and they're not even getting that. So, 2 episodes left. This one is very, very clearly limping across the finish line. It's irredeemable. Like, there's no way I'm going to look at this and be like, oh, they nailed it. What do you know? There's no level of great that the final 2 episodes could be to redeem this season as a whole. Like, I can't even sit here and guarantee they're going to complete this Rebecca arc. The thing with the clues from the psychic and all that kind of shit. I don't even know they're going to complete that. Like, there's just so much. There's so much that went wrong this season, and I don't know if I'm going to talk about it after the finale. I've talked about it as it's happened throughout the course of the season. But it might be interesting to just kind of look back at some of the stuff that they set up at the beginning of the season and where we ended up at the end of the season. Like, when we talk about Zava, and I'm only going to do this for a second. A lot of people go, what was the point of Zava? Myself included. And people then go, well, it was meant to showcase Jamie and yeah. I want to ask you this question. if Zava never appeared in the show, would that have changed Jamie's arc in any way whatsoever? I'll see you guys next week for episode 11. And until then, peace.